is how it works. We are located inside the Uniontown Mall, the Uniontown Liquidation Outlet. Visit us on Facebook, Uniontown Liquidation Outlet. Hope to see you soon.
Businesses come in all shapes and sizes. Integrity doesn't. For more than a century, the Better Business Bureau has set the standards for how businesses should operate honestly and ethically. So when you're looking for a business you can trust, check to see who's BBB accredited and who isn't. Always choose the better business. Look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Do you need a fast, friendly notary service that is open in the evening? Sandy Howell Notary Services is here for you, offering new PA and West Virginia plates and ready to assist with your vehicle, boat, motorcycle, and ATV registrations and transfers, plate renewals, and more. Serving Fayette County and all surrounding areas, open weekdays from 10 to 8:30 and Saturdays from 9 to 5. Sandy Howell Notary Services, Dry Knob Road, Smithfield. Call 724-564-8955. Big enough to serve you, small enough to know you by name.
Good morning, your local station, 590 and 101.1 WMBS, 1125, 68 degrees outside of our studios here in Uniontown. And now it's time for the Quatrini Law Group with offices here in Uniontown and Somerset, as well as Greensburg. They specialize in personal injury, workers' compensation, Social Security disability, long-term disability, and veterans benefits. Phone 888-534-6016. And now your hosts for today's program, Jim Miller and Brian Bronson. Gentlemen, how we doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Welcome aboard. Good to see you again. What's going on?
Yeah, so Brian, I think you want to kick us off here this morning about what does this process look like? How do people end up in our office? And so how do you know, one, do I need a lawyer? And then two, how do you find that lawyer?
Yeah, so finding a lawyer can be difficult. You can drive your car around these days and you can see many roadside signs.
Even
and
just in the radio.
Sure.
On the radio you can hear
Sure. There are multiple law firms. There's a lot of good law firms. There's a lot of so-so law firms, and there's some law firms you probably want to avoid. But when you're driving around, you're seeing these billboards. You're seeing law firms that may be local. They may have a very small local office, but yet have a large national presence. So really, how people find lawyers is different depending on who they are. If this was, 50 years ago, you probably would know a lawyer that lives in your community. You live more in a town community and you know a lawyer, you know the doctor, you know where to go. You'd ask them for a recommendation. And that still happens to us a lot. So
Right.
as you know, you get calls every day for people looking for recommendations.
I went to the doctor. The doctor said, not only are you hurt, but this is somebody else's fault, or it could be. So why don't you call a lawyer, reach out to, a lawyer that the doctor knows or a lawyer the doctor's heard has somebody, a former patient, has had good success with. Reach out to them and start asking questions about your case. So that's one of the ways people find us.
Traditional word of mouth. And I think our business has been built on word of mouth more than any other referral source. Word of mouth, other attorneys, and doctors, because we do a large workers' compensation, personal injury, long-term disability, and a lot of doctors will say, hey, my patient had a really good experience with this law firm. You should call them and check them out. So that's one way that people find lawyers, is through recommendations from people that they trust.
Yeah.
Billboards, I would encourage you, if you see a billboard, to start doing a little bit more research. So billboards might get that firm into your mind, but you need to do some research. So what does that research entail? You need to find out more about that law firm. Is that firm a national law firm with a local, small office? Are they born and bred in Pennsylvania? Are they born and bred in Fayette County? Where are they from? How long have they practiced?
Right.
So, a Google is one way that people find law firms.
Absolutely. You find their website, start poking around. And this might be the attorney in me, I like to go see not just the names on the firm, but how many lawyers are there with that firm? How long have they been there? And what are they practicing? And we'll get to that. But also, do we know about their staff or, like you said, their office locations? Where can I go to meet these attorneys? Or do I just have to pick up the phone? And what's that going to look like as the client-attorney relationship progresses?
Right. So, you've got that way of going through Google, going through the search engines. Lately, AI is taking over, so we'd have to talk about AI.
Yeah.
And AI can be very helpful. It can be very misleading all at the same time. AI is essentially, and the way I think about it is, it's a search engine that's much easier to use, that's interactive, but it's doing the same thing as a search engine, just reorganizing the information.
Absolutely.
So we'll see people that'll say, hey, I went to ChatGPT, or I went to Claude, or one of these AI sources.
Google Search Assist.
Google Search Assist also has an AI function. They'll say, I want to know who a good law firm for workers' compensation is in Greensburg. Something we check all the time to make sure we come up on the results highly, and we do. But those will give you some names, and the problem with ChatGPT and AI is that AI only knows what it's being fed from these different sites.
Right. And it's hard for you to know what it's being fed. Right. At least with a Google search, you can see, oh, this was sponsored, whereas this is a search result inside of Maps with some reviews, or this is their website that has these words on it. You can see that on Google, but if you're an AI, it just gives you some answers, and you don't know if somebody paid to be there, what they did on the back end to end up in that search result.
Right. And then, so these are all ways to kind of get your foot into the door of, okay, these are the potential attorneys I need for my case. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what type of attorney, because not all types of attorneys are the same. But once you get your foot in the door and understand, okay, so these are the 4 law firms within my local geographical area that do workers' compensation. I want someone that's been around for a long time. I want somebody that is experienced in what they do. So you're going to do some other further searches. And there's some other ways you can kind of specialize search for the attorneys. One way you can just Google that specific attorney's name, look for reviews on Google. Sometimes their prior case filings show up, and you can, maybe if you're interested in reading an opinion from a court where they've filed an action before, or a newspaper article.
Yeah.
When I used to do a lot of criminal law when I was a younger lawyer, they found some very interesting criminal law headlines that were found. But there's other places you can go. So one of the most reputable websites, and I would say probably the A+ variant, is Martindale.
Right.
So Martindale Hubble is a website that is based upon essentially years and years and years of reviews of attorneys.
Right.
And they are very hard to get ratings associated with
Right.
those.
Back up a second. I think
Yeah.
it's peer reviewed, right?
That's right.
And that's, I think, the most important thing. It's lawyers recommending other lawyers.
Well, I mean, we look at the peers this way. There's actually 3 reviews. There's a
Okay.
client level review, there's a peer attorney level review, and there's actually a judicial level review
Okay.
to get a rating on that website. So I've been around for 25 years. I am what's considered a BV rating, or I can't think of what they've changed the name a little bit, but there used to be AV, BV, and then qualified. So those are all lawyers that you're looking for. So if you see somebody that's at the top at Martindale, you can be assured that person is extremely legitimate lawyer.
They're recommended by clients,
Correct.
other attorneys, colleagues who recognize their ability in that field, and then also the judiciary, so the judges who your case is eventually going to end up before.
There's also other websites you can look at. Super Lawyers, AVV, it was AVOO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I can always get the initials messed up. But, there's a varying degrees of legitimacy with these websites. Some are peer reviewed. I think Super Lawyers is. AVOO is more of a client review, but there is some potential for a peer review. So again, websites you want to look at, but I think when you look at multiple websites
Right.
and multiple different agencies, plus the other thing is you can always look up an attorney's license.
Yeah.
It's not more than once in my practice that somebody has hired a lawyer that or has conversed with a lawyer that may be disbarred or on suspension or things like that. So you can go directly to the state
Pennsylvania
website.
Bar Association, PA Bar, I think it's a .org URL. Search the attorney and see the history, any pending proceedings, and make sure the information you're finding in AI matches what's on that registered website.
Right. But I think if you get any lesson from this, there's a bunch of information out there. Be careful. But be real about your search, and look at people and be able to compare people. Just don't go to somebody because they have 15 billboards up.
Right.
You may find out that literally they have 2 lawyers in Western Pennsylvania and 1,000 in some other parts of the country.
The rest of the nation.
And that maybe that is the right person for you, maybe not. And then you look into the normal interview process that we've talked about before.
Yeah, yeah. But, part of the issue there when somebody's trying to find that lawyer is what type of lawyer am I looking for, right? And that we can pivot then to, do I need a lawyer and what kind of lawyer do I need? Because some firms, like you heard our introduction from Nick, talk about certain types of practice areas. Other
Sure.
firms don't. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so Pennsylvania, we really don't have a formal specialization process. There is some movement, and I think workers' compensation has these workers' compensation
Yeah,
specialist
you
exams.
can actually be certified as a specialist in that field.
Right. So that's one of the few in Pennsylvania where you can be specialized and have a designation from the state that you are specialized in that. Otherwise, I, as an attorney admitted to the bar of Pennsylvania, could do pretty much anything I want in the realms of being an attorney.
Right.
I could write a will. I wouldn't think somebody would want a will from me who doesn't
could
practice in that area.
Draft an asset transaction, contract for
Right.
whatever you could imagine.
And there's always a misnomer that a lawyer is a lawyer. So when you go to law school and you come out of law school, of course, and you pass the bar, you're a lawyer. But there are lawyers that we know, you and I know, that are very good lawyers that don't do anything but draft or write documents.
Mm-hmm.
They never leave their office to go to court or go to a hearing or talk to an adversarial party.
Right.
They're talking to a client, they're drafting a document, they're reviewing with their client. They're never having a third party come in and say, I object to this or
Right,
do
you're
that.
wrong about this one, you're right about that. That's not what the law says should happen.
Right. So those are more on the end of corporate lawyers or drafting lawyers or things of that sort. You would see those mostly in the larger law firms in cities, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and very good lawyers, working for big corporations, doing documents and whatnot. Then there's litigation, right?
Right.
So litigators are different. So there's business litigators, again, working for the big law firms, litigating these
Right.
multi-billion-dollar cases.
When the parking garage isn't finished on time, or we have the bridge coming up in Pittsburgh. When the bridge is delayed, that'll be an entire sense of litigation, and that's corporate law with millions of dollars at interest.
But what I thought was an interesting thing we could do is I'm just going to bring up a hypothetical. I'll ask you, you can ask me back and forth. And I already told you that, I've done one will in my life. And I think I did one power of attorney, both for relatives, early on in my career. I would not do that today. I would pass that off to
Pass
somebody
it off,
special.
right.
So if I needed a will, what kind of lawyer am I looking for?
You need an estates and trust attorney, essentially a lawyer who not even administers but prepares those documents. Somebody who has a process ready to go when you come into their office. This is what I need to know from you, Brian, in order to prepare all of those documents. And this is how I prepare it. They'll have a system ready to go for it.
So I'm going to throw you a little curveball. What if I'm contesting a will? My great-grandfather didn't give me enough in the will. I'm going to contest it. I want to go to court. I want to litigate that. Can I call an estate lawyer, and are they going to help me?
They might be able to, but they might also refer you to a probate attorney or an attorney who litigates family law, those types of disputes where you end up in court.
So when we say litigation,
Right.
I think a lot of people think the words go to court.
Right.
What does litigation mean?
Litigation can mean go to court, can mean filing motions, filing a lawsuit, but litigation is, like you touched on, more so that adversarial process within a court system. So it doesn't have to be downtown in the Fayette County Courthouse, doesn't have to be in Pittsburgh before the Western Federal District Court, but it does mean you're navigating some type of legal system with an opponent typically.
Okay. Next, I'll give you an example. I'm in a car. I'm driving. I wreck my own car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm injured.
Yeah.
I hit into a tree. Nobody caused that accident other than myself. It was late at night. I was tired. I have some damages to my vehicle. I have personal injury. Do I need a lawyer?
Probably not. If you have car insurance, you're probably able to navigate that entire process with your own car insurance company.
Same situation. I wreck my own car, but my friend's in the car. He needs a lawyer, does he?
Absolutely. If your friend who's hurt is injured because of the accident that you just told me you're responsible for, he has a claim. And this is where, like you touched on, litigation can be highly adversarial. Sometimes it's just the process by which we sort our issues out.
So what kind of lawyer am I looking for? You're my friend. He's been in the accident. I like him. I understand he's going to file a lawsuit because he's been injured, but what kind of lawyer is he going to go look for? When he goes on Google, what's he going to do?
He should look for a personal injury lawyer, and specifically one who looks at personal injury relating to automobile accidents.
Okay. How about this one? I am involved in a transaction on eBay for a vehicle.
Okay.
The owner of the vehicle is in Florida. It's a collectible car. It's worth a lot of money. I'm here in Pennsylvania. There's a dispute that develops between the two of us. Who do I hire on that?
Yeah, that is going to be more like a transactional attorney. And with a caveat, right? Because you're not a big company, you don't have a corporate lawyer or a corporate firm you retain. So you might want to be looking for some sort of like a business attorney, or there are firms in our area who hold themselves out as having those parallel credentials, I like to think of them. So an attorney that's also a CPA, or an attorney who's also run a business or has some type of accounting background, some business experience, because you need an attorney who's experienced with that contract of sale and that type of dispute. You may need an attorney who's able to practice federally. And that's the other thing that comes in here when you're talking across state lines, especially when something might have happened across state lines. You might be looking for a lawyer in that state. If you're on vacation, I'll throw one back to you. You load the kids up, you're going to go to Wyoming. You're driving in Wyoming in a rental, and you get in a car accident. You're quite certain it's not your fault, but the Wyoming State Police kind of gave home field advantage to the other driver. Who do you call?
Well, interesting. If that happened to me, the first thing I would do is call somebody locally. So I would know, and I think one of the things you learn after many years is you know what you don't know, right? When you're younger, you think you know everything. When you're older, you realize I don't know enough to make a decision. So if you call a local lawyer, we get calls like that all the time.
Like back home.
Right. So you call a lawyer back home and say, hey, I was injured out in Wyoming. Here's the problem. I've got this dispute. I'd like to hire somebody, but I don't know who I need. I don't know who I need to talk to. So if you call a local lawyer, and I get calls like this all the time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, in my mind, know what practice area I need to look for a lawyer in. And then, of course, I'm going straight to Martindale, because I know that's a reputable site where if I refer a client to somebody from Martindale who has an AV or a preeminent rating, I know that they've gotten somebody that's peer reviewed, that's client reviewed, that's judge reviewed, that's going to be the top of the ball game, and I can send them out to them, and then they can do the same process again. Okay, now you're with a legitimate attorney in the area, and they can then divvy that out a little bit better.
Right.
So one back at you. So let's say that, I go in for routine gallbladder surgery, and I end up with a ton of complications afterwards.
Okay.
And I think there might be an issue with medical malpractice. What kind of lawyer am I looking for there? Can't I just call the PI firm, the personal injury firm?
No, so personal injury and medical malpractice are completely different. And it has a lot to do with where this is happening, right? We're in the medical realm now. So we're talking about how a doctor proceeded through a surgery or carried out their care. And so you need a medical malpractice attorney.
Can my personal injury lawyer, that I know and trust, can they help me find a medical malpractice lawyer?
Absolutely. It's something that we do at our firm all the time. We have attorneys who are trained to evaluate those claims and then get you to the right medical malpractice attorney, or discuss, maybe you don't have a case. And that, unfortunately, that happens. People call us in a really bad circumstance, and there's not a way to proceed. But we have to explain that. That's part of our job as attorneys, is not to bring frivolous claims, and also to help educate our clients about the best way to proceed.
Okay, another situation. I've got lots of debt. I've got unpaid bills. I've got loans. I've got foreclosure notices. What type of lawyer do I need to reach out to?
Bankruptcy attorney. There are attorneys, once again, who specialize in that. I think it's still a separate court. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
There is a bankruptcy court.
There's a bankruptcy court. So you want an attorney who's a member of that bar or licensed to practice there, admitted, and has experience navigating that process.
Okay. Let's think of some other ones here.
Yeah, I like. I always think about products liability because I have a background as a mechanical engineer. So I come across products and I'm like, this thing sucks to use, but is that the same as a lawsuit against someone for harm caused by products? So let's start with you're out in your tree stand, climbing it the same way you have for seasons after seasons, but this time one of the rungs falls out of the tree and you get injured.
So interesting. We've done some cases, I know, in-house. We've done crossbows. We've done various different things. Products cases are very unique. So as you know, being an engineer, that you really do need somebody with mechanical expertise in a products case. So sometimes, depending on what the product is, a general personal injury lawyer could possibly handle a products case. But most of the time, you're going to be going to a larger law firm that handles just products liability cases. And what they have, different from the local personal injury lawyer, is they have access to more engineers, more experts,
Right.
more diagrams. They may even have a lawsuit in the past against this same particular product, because products liability cases are probably one of the most expensive lawsuits that exist, not because of anything other than the expertise required to do the discovery, to
Right.
learn about the product, to determine that the product is in fact a faulty product.
Yeah, and experts, that's a great point, because it also ties back to medical malpractice. So you talked about your gallbladder surgery that might have had a complication. What about I'm in a car accident, not anyone's fault but my own. I hit a tree. They take me by ambulance to the hospital, and they do workup. They tell me, you're good to go home. A few days later, my headache just won't go away. And I go to another doctor and they say, geez, you have a serious concussion. Do I have a case against that emergency room doctor? And who should I talk to find out if I do?
So there's sometimes differences between having a case that is one that lawyers may be more interested in. So anytime that a professional drops below the standard of care, anytime they commit negligence. So in this case, something they should have discovered, they didn't discover it, and now you have harm. That's negligence. There might be a little bit more facts that have to be established there, but you have a claim sounding in negligence. Your damages up to that point are a few days, right? Now, is the concussion something that if it was caught earlier, that it would have not been any worse? Or by having the concussion and not being treated for that period of time, are you going to have irreparable harm?
Right.
Those are the questions. So, and because it's you as a person going up against a big hospital system or, an insurance company with lots of money and lots of resources, unfortunately, and needing to hire experts who are
Right.
very expensive.
Exactly. You need a doctor who's going to say the doctor who cared for you that you're suing failed to meet not just a normal standard of care, but the medical standard of care in that region.
So if I have essentially, let's say, $50,000 of damages, and the experts are going to be $50,000, when certain lawyers will look at that case, they'll look at it, and this is very unfair, don't get me wrong, but they'll look at that case and say, hey, the damages are there, it truly is negligence, but the cost to prove this case is about the same as the damages. This would be a case that would be very difficult to pursue.
Yeah.
There may be a few lawyers out there that would say, on principle, this is a case that we need to take because of various other issues, but it's going to be harder for them to take a case. So yes, you have a case. You're going to probably have to talk to multiple lawyers, multiple medical malpractice facilities, that do that in order to find someone that may take that case. Though.
Here's a fun one. I have property. I live in a neighborhood. All of our houses are kind of next to each other. Our property lines touch, but there's a paper alley. There's I can see it if I look up the tax map. There's an alley that's supposed to be back there. People started planting trees back there. Do I need a lawyer, and what kind of lawyer would I need for that?
Well, it depends on what your interest in that paper lot is. So, a lot of times what will happen is two neighbors will get in a dispute over some piece of property that maybe neither owns, or that the property lines are one way or the other. Those are some of the nastiest lawsuits, and some of the most people that really can't get along. You really don't want to get into a situation with you and your neighbor, or you and the neighborhood, period.
Yeah.
But if you do need to find, that's one practice area that you may be able to go to just any general lawyer that practices locally, that knows that area, that knows how to read a municipal map, that knows some basic aspects of adverse possession and some law about land ownership, they could probably help you out and do that. But those are, again, cases where eventually you're going to hire a litigator.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be in a dispute, you're going to be in depositions, emotions are going to run very high, and you better hire a good litigator who can work with people and not get everybody upset, because those cases can turn from, a piece of property of value of $10,000 into $50,000 in legal fees very easily. So,
What about I live in an apartment and I just got an eviction notice. Do I need a lawyer?
probably.
Yeah. What kind of lawyer would I need for
Again, that's another one that you can call a general lawyer to do. That's a hard practice area to specialize in. Again, I know we're not, quote, specialists, but some people will take their practices and limit them more to those areas than other. Any lawyer could handle that. Again, you're going to probably be in some type of litigation or negotiation. You're going to want a lawyer that can read contracts. Very few people. The way lawyering works is, if there's a lot of cases in an area, there's people that gravitate towards those types of cases, and they limit themselves more to those types of cases. In an area like eviction and things like that, there's just not that many evictions that are going on. Maybe in New York City, where there's millions of people and there's millions of evictions.
Right.
You might see people specializing more into that practice area. But out here, it would be more your family lawyer that would do that.
Well, then let's piece this together, because we have a law firm that does personal injury, workers' compensation, Social Security disability, workers' compensation, if I didn't already say that one, veterans benefits, long-term disability. How does that all tie together?
Right. The commonality in what we do is, if you are injured or hurt, regardless of how that happened, right? If we know how it happened, that could be workers' compensation or personal injury. But there's other Social Security disability, there's long-term disability, where we don't have to worry about how you're injured, just that you have some type of medical condition. And again, it doesn't have to be an injury. It can be an accident, an injury. It could be a medical condition like cancer or MS that now prevents you from working. Just any medical condition that causes you harm and prevents your ability to do things. There are things that we do to help out all of those people.
Right.
And we would specialize based more upon how that accident happened or how the injury happened. If it happened at work, workers' compensation. If it happened while you were in service of our country, in the military, it's veterans.
Right.
If you developed MS and can't work anymore, that's Social Security and potentially long-term disability, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And we'll get a lot of issues, even for those people. There may be other issues associated with that. So we might have a workers' compensation person that files a workers' compensation claim. Now all of a sudden the employer says you're fired. Okay. There may be a legitimate reason to fire somebody when they can't come back to work. There may not be. It may be a retaliation for right. It might be retaliation for filing a workers' compensation claim. So even though we might not do that retaliatory discharge claim in-house, we're going to be an integral part of that person's life and their litigation, and what we do in the workers' compensation case is going to help. But the specialist for that would be a
employment attorney. Yes,
right.
Absolutely. So, as we finish up here, one of the attorneys we didn't talk about, and I think it's because the name is right in the practice is right in the title, criminal defense. How in the world do you decide if you need a criminal defense attorney?
Let's put it this way. If you are talking to the police, you need a criminal defense attorney. I did criminal defense for probably about 10 years. And I can tell you that nothing good comes from talking to the state police or talking to the local police if you are, in fact, under investigation. You're not going to talk yourself out of it. Even if you're innocent, you really need to make sure that you have representation, because that's going to keep everything from snowballing in a negative fashion. Let me just give me one idea here to let you know. So if you go down and talk to the state police and you're meeting with them, you are in a room with the state police officer by yourself. The state police officer has, let me ask you, do you think he has a recording device? Do you think he has a camera?
Might not, probably doesn't unless you ask him to.
Most of the time he has a yellow notepad like you have here, and he takes down notes. And we've all played the telephone game, where we walk around and you say one simple statement and then somebody else says it to somebody else.
Well, we've seen My Cousin Vinny, right? That entire movie starts from a misunderstanding of not even notes, just repeating somebody's question.
Right. So in that kind of situation, you would really want to have somebody there to listen to the question, to be able to do that, or to make sure that that conversation is recorded if you are going to give a statement. So again, you don't have to talk to the police if you're under investigation. And there's sometimes you do want to. I've talked to the police lots of times with my client because I've met with the client, we've talked, we know that the facts are in our favor, and we need to nip this in the bud immediately, and that they need to turn their investigation on someone else. So from day one is in criminal law.
Right. Okay. Well,
All right, guys, great stuff. We're good to go for the week.
yeah.
Any more information?
I think that's everything. You know, I
All
was
right.
thinking about trees falling too, but you know, a lot of the times insurance or some other type of policy is also a way that you can kind of clean up some of these messes without getting an attorney involved.
That's right.
All right, gentlemen, great stuff. Thank you so much, Jim and Brian. All right, we'll be back 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right.
Thank you.
It's 11:55, 68 degrees. You have been listening to Jim Miller and Brian Bronson, the Quatrini Law Group, with an office on East Main Street in Uniontown and an office in Somerset as well as Greensburg. Join us the first and third Monday of each month at 11:25 a.m. for Quatrini Law Group. Phone 888-534-6016. News is next in just a bit on your local station, 590 and 101.1 WMPS.
Do you need a fast, friendly notary service that is open in the evening? Sandy Howell Notary Services is here for you, offering new PA and West Virginia plates and ready to assist with your vehicle, boat, motorcycle, and ATV registrations and transfers, plate renewals, and more. Serving Fayette County and all surrounding areas, open weekdays from 10 to 8:30 and Saturdays from 9 to 5. Sandy Howell Notary Services, Dry Knob Road, Smithfield. Call 724-564-8955. Big enough to serve you.